Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abbey, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abbey podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dear Abbey. I am your host. My name is Abby. Thank you for joining me today. I made a grave error and put on Lip Plumper lip gloss, and I licked my lips almost immediately after, and now my tongue is very numb and there's a lot of zaps going on. So if I'm talking weird, I apologize. That was a very dumb mistake that I made. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday or whatever day you're listening. I hope you guys have fun plans for the weekend. I know I do. Playing some video games, Ark specifically, another game called Grounded. A lot of base building games. I don't know if it's because I'm married now, but I really want to settle down, and because I don't have the actual funds to buy a home and start building stuff out, I'm doing it through games. Yes, I could probably spend some of that time investing in real stuff, and I do, but over the weekends, I just want a couple of hours to just be able to game and just have fun and not worry about everything. And then I get back in the real world and it's fun. And then I can do all the real planning and the real building and stuff. I'm becoming a traditional wife in video games because I just will stay home, cook and clean for the husband while he's out catching and taming dinosaurs. And I just stay in when he gets home. I have dinner ready. And I have done some taming. For context, Ark is a dinosaur game where you tame dinosaurs and build bases. But I have also done some work while he's been out with dinosaurs and animals. I have tamed otters. I have tamed frogs. I have tamed cute small baby dinosaurs that really have they don't do anything except for just eat your food. And they are cute and they follow you around. So I do my own stuff while he's out and about fighting T-Rexes and a freaking Stegosaurus or a Doedicurus. He's out finding all of these dinosaurs, an Argentavis, you name it, a Megalosaurus. And he might bring home T-Rexes, raptors, more impressive, big, useful dinosaurs. But I have the sweet ones that you come home to. Because then I'm making a home of our base. I just got done painting my house in the game and it looks spectacular. And I painted the house. I built in a sink, running water. I built drums to get everybody pumped up for battle, for war. And he provides the big dinosaurs. And we make a great team. So married life, I would say married life is pretty fun. It's been good. Married life has been good to us so far. Honestly, my favorite thing that my husband has brought home has been a woolly mammoth, because not only is it cute and it's fluffy, everything else is like feathery and they're dinosaurs, and some things are cute. Like there's like cute small things, again, otters, other things like that. But the woolly mammoth is massive. It picks a lot of berries for you and a lot of wood, and it just became a good friend of mine. So I won't bore you with more details of our married life. Basically, that's it. And it really does. Honestly, Kean and I kind of get into little bickering moments when we play video games together because I get my feelings hurt really easily. Like he will say, hey, don't do that. That's going to ruin this. Or, hey, maybe let's do something else. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You think I'm dumb? What did you say? You think I'm stupid? You don't want to play with me? So sometimes that's how it goes, but sometimes I don't feel incredibly insecure, and when we play, we actually have fun. And he's like, you're cool again. And I'm like, I kind of am cool again. Good times. The most fun I have playing games is when I am when I don't take everything he says personally or an attack on my character. For example, if I go out and take a weapon and I accidentally break it, instead of him saying, hey, instead of getting defensive when he's like, maybe don't do that again, I just say, yeah, you're right. That was kind of stupid of me to do that. And then we laugh and we have fun. Anyways, okay. Okay, actually, enough is enough of that. Let's actually move on. I have a story to tell you, but first, let me tell you what we're talking about today, what I've been thinking about, what's been in my brain. I have been thinking a lot about how to get past things, like how to move forward, and not just with things that people have done to hurt you or something, that too, but things that I've done in my past that like are cringy small things. So both kind of bigger things and smaller things, like silly things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of that and almost like the process of forgiving yourself and somebody else or situation, and just like how I've really been able to let some things go. And there's some things that are too big that like come back and they leave, and then they come back, then they leave. So I feel like I've let them go 1,000 times, but as many times as it takes. And there's new things that I think I'm supposed to be learning from things that keep coming back up. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. But before that, I wanted to share a story from a honeymoon that included breaking and entering, being homeless, almost getting stranded in the middle of Costa Rica, and also in the middle of the night, and almost adopting a stray dog. So while we were in Costa Rica, as I said last week, I don't know exactly what I said, but we went to two main places, Manuel Antonio and La Fortuna. Manuel Antonio, or Capos, as more people maybe know Capos, we went there first. And that is on the coast, so there's beaches. That was the vibe for the first couple of days. And we stayed in an Airbnb. And then our next location was La Fortuna, and that is more inland. You go up like north and then inland. So it was maybe like, I think it was a 5-hour drive or a 6-hour drive. And our idea was we're checking out out of our Airbnb in the morning. We're going to the beach because it'll be our last time in Costa Rica, like by the beach. Hopefully there was going to be a shower wherever we were going so we could rinse off and then have a change of clothes, get back in the car, drive 6 hours through the kind of crazy roads of Costa Rica, and then get to our location, to our next Airbnb, and check in. So we're super excited. It's going to be a long day, but when we drove from the airport to Manuel Antonio, it was a beautiful drive. It was just cool, and it was new sights, and it was just beautiful. So it wasn't that bad of a drive. It's not just normal desert like I'm used to. So we were kind of excited to take the drive and see the sights and go up in the mountains and see everything. So we check out of our Airbnb. We go to the beach. We're there for maybe like 5 hours. So we stayed maybe until 2 or 3. We wanted to stay as long as possible because the beaches are warm and it was beautiful. Nearing the end of the beach day, my whole body was very itchy and my face was extremely rashy. And I looked like the Joker because my mouth, like the sides of my mouth, the corners of my mouth were so dry that they were like ripping. And so, okay, I have a horrifying image in my head. It wasn't that bad. It was like a centimeter of a rip, but even then it was like every time I opened my mouth, it felt like it was ripping more. It's not as crazy as it sounds, but it was extremely painful. So I also was getting a headache. I think I had a little bit of heat exhaustion because it was a really sunny day. The UV was super high. So we're just ready to go. I'm not feeling good. I have the rashy, the itchies all over my body, all over my face. But I'm happy, like I'm not miserable. I mean, maybe my husband would say I was complaining. I like to say I was venting about my pain, but I'm just ready to go. I always try to stay positive, okay? If I'm miserable, I can get through things pretty miserably. So I was being like, okay, you know what? I am pretty uncomfortable, but we have a long road ahead and I don't want to make myself more miserable. So I'm just going to enjoy the trip. We head down the road and into the mountains of Costa Rica. Before we went, people always told us the roads are a little bit sketchy there. And in order to get from point A to point B, it could be like 30 miles away and like a 40-minute drive if they had a freeway, but they just have roads really, and there's like maybe 1 or 2 freeways. I don't know exactly, but that was the case. We weren't going that far, but it was like a 5 to 6 hour drive, and it was felt like one windy road the entire time through the mountains. You're going high up into the mountains and you're like on the edge. They don't have any of the road blocker things, so you don't fly off the side of the mountain. So we left in the late afternoon, like 2 or 3. We're driving in the mountains. It's getting dark, but it's beautiful. We're getting higher up into the mountains. So all I see is rainforest and then like a house every once in a while. And it was beautiful for the first couple of hours. Then it became pitch black and there's no street lights. And we were in the middle of the mountains and the rainforest is really loud, which I love, but it was also horrifying, as well as every 2 seconds there's like a pothole. And every time our tire didn't pop, my husband and I were extremely shocked. Also, because we were so high up, the clouds were covering everything like it was just fog. You couldn't see like a foot in front of you. It's pitch black. There's fog. We're in windy mountains with no railings, whatever the crap they're called. And we've never driven on this road before. It was a little bit stressful for me. I was playing it cool though. Keaton was pretty anxious because he is the man. He felt he had to protect me, which he does. So at this point, I was getting more anxious and uncomfortable. I was getting very tired, but I was still a lady and graceful and like, hey, honey, I trust you. Do your thing. We're going to be okay. This is fun. I'm having fun. This is fun. I'm having fun. After those exact conditions for a couple of hours, like 2 more hours, we finally start to go downhill out of the mountains. Still very windy, still a lot of potholes. And we go through a sketchy part of the city. Then we get to our destination city. We drive to the Airbnb. We tap in the code. And this is on a private lot. So you have to type in the code to open the gate to get to like your little lot. So we're so tired. We're so exhausted. We're so anxious. We just want to be safe and tucked in and comfy and cozy. At least I did. I don't know what he was feeling. He was excited to just get to the cool Airbnb. We pull in. We drive our little car onto the gravel of the driveway. We get out of the car. We're like, let's look around. So we walk to the outdoor kitchen that they had. And there was like goldfish crackers everywhere. And they had food. There was crumbs. There was like a piece of bread laying there. And Keaton and I looked at each other like, what the crud? They didn't clean? Then we go to the actual house. Type in the code. Opens up. Great. We walk in. There's clothes everywhere. And the bed is not made, clearly. And there is a crib, like a pack and play for a baby. But there's no cars here. There's no people. I don't hear any sounds. And then Keaton and I looked at each other. Like somebody is here. Like somebody is either on the property or they like went to go get dinner and they're going to be back any second. So we lock everything back up. We go to the car. We start to drive and we realize that the gate closed. And we don't have the key card on this side. You had to press in the keypad on the other side of the gate. So now we're stuck on this property. Somebody is definitely staying in that Airbnb right now. And we didn't know what the heck to think. And so we're in the car. Keaton's like, wait, did I like not book it for tonight? And he looks at the Airbnb and we booked it for the night after. So in his head, it was like we leave on, the 11th and then we check in on the 12th. But obviously it should have been leave the 11th, check in on the 11th. Because now we had no place to stay in the middle of the city we've never been to, in a country we've never been to. And it's raining. And I'm miserable. So Keaton's like trying to figure out what's happening on his phone. And I still hadn't lost it at this point. I was still calm, cool, graceful queen. But I gently reminded Keaton, maybe instead of looking at what happened, we should get the F off of this property because they're going to pull into this driveway any second and they're going to open the gate with the little clicker thing that we do not have. They're going to drive in and we're going to play chicken. And our headlights are going to be facing each other and they're going to see us and we're going to see them and it's going to be really awkward and I don't want to freaking go to Costa Rican police. So let's just not worry about how this happened and just get the frick out of here and go to a safe location and we can figure out what we want to do. He said, good point. Proceeded to figure out a way he could jump the fence, but it was pretty high and there wasn't any way he could climb it. even though he's a climber. I was a little disappointed that he couldn't figure out a way. And then there's a bunch of barbed wire fences on both sides. This is when I started to panic a little bit, and I felt like I couldn't breathe very well because I just was freaked the freak out. So Keaton got out of the car. He's like running around trying to find a place to get out so we can open up the gate from the other side so we could drive out. He finds a little thing in a barbed wire fence where he needed my help to step on the bottom one and then pull it up with like with my sleeve over my hand so my hand doesn't get cut open and evidence isn't left. And so I peel it open. He like crawls, maneuvers his way through, and we're pretty far from the gate, but we're just in a bunch of plants. He has to go through all these plants. He gets to the other side, opens it. We get in the car. We leave. We did not see anybody, thankfully. Drive down the road. We park, figure out what we want to do. We find an Airbnb that's, I'm not kidding, 5 seconds away. It's pretty cheap. And at this point, it's 10 p.m. We could not find it. It took probably another hour to an hour and a half to try to find where the Airbnb was, but we were looking at it the whole time. We were parked by it, but the way the pictures were, it just did not look like that was the place. We check into that Airbnb. We go in there, and the part where the dog comes in is there was a stray dog, as there's a lot of stray dogs that we saw. But this one was particularly cute and was particularly sweet and obsessed with us. Like when we were parked there, it was like sitting by the car, just staring at me, just happy to be watching me in my car for a long time. Then when we got out and we were getting into the Airbnb, he was just following us, just walking, not barking, just being chill. Like, hey, you want me? Try to go into the house with us, which we weren't going to let that happen. I love dogs. I would have, but he also could have been somebody's dog. I don't know. So we get into the Airbnb. I'm still graceful queen. I'm a little bit anxious. It's fine. I haven't broken down yet. I'm holding it all in. We get inside the Airbnb. I am a big vibe girl. So if things aren't like super clean or welcoming, I get really anxious staying in somebody else's house, as do a lot of people. Keaton's fine. He's like, cool, yeah, we'll just sleep here for the night. He can sleep in hostels, he can sleep in whatever, and he's fine. But I was more anxious now that I'm in a place that I was not planning to sleep in. Okay, I need to plan where I'm going to sleep because I need to mentally prepare that I'm going to be uncomfortable in a new space for a while. But look at the pictures. It's cute. It's safe, whatever. Completely new place. Did not seem safe at all. Did not have this on my radar. So I was a little bit caught off guard. My OCD was off the rails at this point. Just like my mind was going a million miles per hour and I don't even know what about. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to watch TV until I fall asleep or something. So I'm getting in the shower. I want to like clean everything off, like the stress and everything. And my husband thought this would be a perfect time. I don't know what was going on in his head to wrap one of his like shirts or whatever he had in his hand and to whip me, but like not hard, obviously, but like a playful like, hey, let me whip ya. When he did that, it scared the crap out of me because I was not facing him. And that's when I broke down. I immediately was like, why did you do that? Then everything that I was feeling all day came to the surface and I just started sobbing. His face dropped and he felt so bad. He didn't know I was that anxious. Anyways, he felt terrible. He gave me a hug. Everything was fine. I just was holding it all in. And thankfully, the place that we stayed in didn't know that we were breaking and entering, but they do have cameras. So they probably, if they were to look at that footage, they would have seen us panicking and being like, oh my freaking crap, we got to get out of here. Pretty crazy day. And we would never drive at night ever again through those roads. That was the scariest thing I think we have ever done. All right, let's move on to the point of the podcast. And I wanted to share my thoughts about moving on from something or getting past something or forgiving yourself and moving on. As I said, I've been having a lot of flashbacks to cringy things that I've done, rude things that I've done, as well as because I am married now, I have had a lot of things resurface. And I kind of expected that, but I wasn't planning on that just in case it didn't happen. I wasn't going to look for it, but that's definitely been the case where things just from my past relationships have come up, and I'm having to relearn how to manage some of my like triggers or just some of my big feelings that come up when I feel insecure or when I feel like I need to be defensive or all of that stuff. With that, obviously, comes with trying to let some of that stuff go from my past again, and also things that I have never really thought specifically about. When I was growing up, I was always told like steps to forgive, and I decided to try it. Like really try it and see if that worked. Like, how do you really forgive? Like, let me look up how people forgive. Like, let me look up the steps. So I legitimately was looking up steps on how to forgive. And so I looked up more of like the psychology with a little bit of like spiritual aspect, but I just wanted to understand the steps. And so this is from PsychCom. That's where I'm getting this from. This is the one that I like. There's 11 steps, which is a lot, but I liked how specific they were. And so step 1 was to grieve. Step 2, reflect on the benefits of forgiveness versus the costs of holding grudges. 3, honor your emotions. 4, stop blaming. 5, seek to understand what drove you and others to neglect or harm someone. 6, practice humility. 7, let go of unrealistic expectations. 8, remember the sacredness of all things. 9, wish your offenders well. 10, forgive yourself. 11, move on. As I'm reading this again, I'm reminded of how badly I need to do this with a couple of things, like even recently, just with myself and with being married. I feel this pressure to like have everything be perfect in our marriage already, but it's just marriage is difficult and it's beautiful and it's fun, but it's also hard to like live with somebody. And especially when you're like nearing 30, you're pretty set in your ways. And so it's a lot of work to work together. But okay, to go over the steps. Step 1, the grief part. So grief, like step 1, is a part that I struggle with, because a lot of the times I just expect myself to say, okay, yeah, I forgive myself. And then I just move forward as if saying the words somehow has the same effect of actually going through the steps and really reflecting on everything, which it does not. It does not have the same effect. You can't just say, yeah, I forgive you, and then not act accordingly or not take some time to even do step number 1, which is grieve or like acknowledge the hurt and the wrong that somebody did to you or the wrong that you did to somebody. It might feel better in the moment to be like, oh, it's not a big deal, and to kind of lie to ourselves or make it not as big of a deal as we really feel it is, or maybe someone else feels it is. Then I just think we're missing out on like some truth to it. For me, acknowledging like, okay, that was actually wrong, like I don't want to do that again, is so freeing to me. Like, it's just a tale as old as time. The truth will set you free. When you acknowledge, like, yeah, I was being selfish, or yes, I was letting my emotions control me. You know, whatever you have to accept or like see about yourself before you can forgive yourself or forgive somebody else. Obviously, the same goes for if you're trying to forgive somebody else. Like, if you acknowledge or you grieve that pain was real and that you caused that, or that somebody else caused that to you, like somebody else did that to you. That was real. That was hurtful, and that was real, and that was not okay. So the grieving and the acknowledging can be painful, because that's where you have to sit with the reality of the situation. Okay, and then it moves on to step 2, which is you compare the benefits of forgiving and moving on versus the negatives of holding on to grudges and never letting that go. I think this is also important, and it was for me, because I like to think about things a lot and I want to understand things. So that way, whatever decision I make, I'm way more confident in my decisions. And not with everything. Like, I think there's some things you can't obviously understand, and it's not an OCD thing. It's just a normal, like, I want to understand what I'm doing before I do it. Obviously, I want to forgive, because I've just grown up learning like that's the best thing to do for yourself and for other people, but I want to understand it because I think that'll mean more to me. That's just how I work. And 3, honor your emotions. This one is one that I talk about all the time with anything. Similar to acknowledging the hurt that somebody caused or that you caused somebody. It's to take a moment and realize that was wrong and that didn't feel good, and whatever you needed to feel, honor that. And it's not like embarrassing to be sad. It's not embarrassing or pathetic or weak to feel hurt or like those negative feelings that come with when you hurt somebody or when somebody hurts you. And I love that it says honor, because I think maybe it's because people have said this to me my whole life, that I'm sensitive and stuff, like too sensitive and dramatic or whatever, and that I'm a baby for feeling sensitive and stuff. I think of emotions as such a negative thing sometimes because I have big emotions, and so it's like that's a negative thing. And I'm still trying to flip that script to where it's like not a negative thing, because I believe that God created everything for a reason. Like there's purposes for things, and I think emotions have a great purpose for things. And I think it's just trying to figure out what that is and how that shows up, and what, how you can honor your feelings. And so, yeah, I just love the word honor, because you respect it, you honor it, you're grateful for it, because I think it can be a guide to you. 4 is stop blaming. I've definitely talked about this one before, of because you're in pain, you want that to be fixed. You don't want to deal with the pain. And so you're trying to find anybody to blame, and even yourself. Like you just want somebody to blame. And that doesn't always solve the issue of you being hurt. I think that just prolongs it. No one can fix like your hurt in that way, where even if somebody is to blame, it still doesn't fix it. So when you stop trying to find everybody else to blame or yourself to blame, and you acknowledge like it's just a part of life, and that doesn't make it less hurtful. This is after you're honoring your emotions. So you've already gone through all of this, and now it's coming more to the acceptance part and like the trying to learn how to move past it. And then step 5 is seek to understand why you or somebody else neglected or harmed somebody. I mean, that's just self-reflection. You try to really understand intellectually, but also emotionally. You understand where someone was at and why they hurt you, but you don't need to like fully understand it, I don't think. I can see that that's why they did that, and I can acknowledge that, and I understand it, from a third person. But I don't think you always have to like fully understand it, but I don't know. And how and why you, maybe if you're the one that did something, why you did that, and be just curious. Not like shamefully curious, just curious about why. 6 is my favorite, because this is not one that came up in a lot of other ones, but it's practice humility. And I genuinely believe, like in the past couple of years, like 2 years, humility has been so life-changing for me. And that sounds weird, like I've never been humble before, or like I just am a walking prideful son of a gun, but there is so much happiness, there's so much peace and joy that comes from being humble and not thinking you're above anybody, even if you like not thinking you're above anybody, not thinking that you're better, smarter, your money's more important, your time's more important. Just really, really remembering that we are all equal. No one person's worth is greater than the others. And that really helps me when people make mistakes, because I think when Jesus says, "He who has no sin may cast the first stone." And that is like something that I always think of, because who am I to like start to judge other people or to think that I am better, because I would have never made that mistake. But I've made others, and I know that, and I know I have. And so I just want to be somebody that's not like that. I don't like that energy. It doesn't feel good to do it, and it's not making me a better person or enjoying life more. So I just think the humility aspect of the steps that one is my favorite, because I didn't see that on a lot of them, but I think that's a huge piece of it. In any relationship, if they make a mistake, you do have to practice a lot of humility and acknowledge that we are both making a lot of mistakes every day, and we are on the same playing field, baby. And it doesn't feel good sometimes to do that, because you acknowledge that I have good intentions, but I make a lot of mistakes still with those, because I am not perfect, and that's painful sometimes. Okay, we have 5 more. The next one is let go of unrealistic expectations. This one to me sounds just like unconditional acceptance, like life acceptance, other acceptance, self-acceptance. There's OCD Recovery, a YouTube channel that talks a lot about that. Having an unconditional acceptance mindset doesn't mean you agree, doesn't mean you live according to what other people are doing, but you can accept that, and that helps you not hold on to things. Remember the sacredness of all things. I love this one as well because the sacredness of all things to me just means like the sweetness, the tenderness of all things. Like life is sweet, life is precious. Every life is precious. Every part of life is precious. And you can argue and say it's not, but I think it's just up to your perspective and you choose whether it is or not, even though I think inherently it is, but you choose whether to see it that way. Wish your offenders well. This one's a hard one for me. When you get to this point where you can really wish, like you really wish that your offenders or yourself do well, like you really want them to succeed and you want them to like find joy and, you know, you want them to be happy. I think that definitely is at the end for a reason, and it's one of the last steps for a reason, because I do think that's very difficult to come to, and that's okay, because it is a really hard thing to wish somebody that hurt you well, like really genuinely, and really genuinely mean it. So it's okay if you're not at a place to where you can do that yet, and these are all steps because it's hard, and obviously it affected you, and it's a hard thing. So the steps make sense. That's why there's steps, because it is hard. And then 10 is forgive yourself. Even when somebody else is the offender or they're the one that hurt you, they did something to you, whatever it is, there's always that part of you that feels like it's your fault. So when it comes to forgiving yourself, that's what I think of, is that little piece of you that's like, that was my fault. Somehow this was my fault. Like something's wrong with me. This was my fault. And this step, I think, is just to let that go and to realize life is much more complex, and just to like actually really believe that there's nothing inherently wrong with you and different than everybody else. Yeah, that's a good one. So forgive yourself. And then obviously the last step is move on. Forgive yourself and move on. It's very obvious why move on is the last step, because that is after you've done all of that stuff, all of that work, all of that like reflection and understanding and feeling the emotions and everything. That's when you finally can move on. Just to reiterate what I said at the beginning about how sometimes I feel like I can just say, I forgive you, and that's it. Or I forgive myself, and then boom, it happened. But I am just skipping all of these steps that really actually help me move on to where emotionally I've moved on. My body has forgotten it, or my body has let go of it at least. Everybody has things that I think they can always forgive still. Like, I just think there's always room to improve on forgiving yourself or other people. And that just makes room for being able to enjoy life more, love things more, see the sweetness again. So I'll be practicing that with a couple of things. And I'm excited because I've never regretted forgiving something and moving on. It's definitely never hurt me. It's only ever helped me. As they say, hurt people. And when you forgive and you make yourself lighter, then you really are able to be there for people more, and your hurt isn't going to then fall onto other people. And I think we have an opportunity to be very aware of that and kind of take responsibility for that as much as we can when you're aware of it. Okay, let's do a Dear Abby. All right, we have a text today. Dear Abby, I'm a 17-year-old girl self-diagnosed with OCD. I have been doing research on what it is to have OCD, and I believe I have it. I focus too hard on what will happen in the future and plan things to the point I annoy myself and wish I could calm down. How do I go about the first steps to healing and not become such a freak or go off the deep end? Sorry if this is confusing or long. Thank you for everything you do. I haven't listened long, but I look up to you and trust what you say. That's a very sweet message. Thank you. I am happy to hear that you trust me, and hopefully I can help at least a little bit, put you like with who can actually help you. So I actually did kind of self-diagnose myself as well, just because I was looking at all my symptoms, like what is freaking me out about myself. And I found that just is what kept popping up when I would research. I didn't know what OCD was. That's how I kind of self-diagnosed. And then I looked into NoCD and OCD and started treatment with the therapist. And the first call that you do is they do an analysis and an assessment to see if you actually have OCD. So that's how I figured out I had OCD. So I also was self-diagnosed, and I know some people, and I know it's dangerous to self-diagnose. And I also see that there is a benefit to, if you aren't getting help, or if you know something is happening to you and you want to get help for it, then I think it's totally fine to do your own research. Like, you have a brain, you can do your own research, but then just definitely the next step, I think, is to try to get professional help. And if not, then, and if that's something that's out of budget or something that's just not going to work for now, there are free support groups on NoCD. There are support groups like locally that you could probably find, like iocd.org. There's a lot of people that really want to help and have a community for people that have OCD, including me, honestly. Including me. Like, that's important to me to have a safe place for people who have it or who just want to learn more about it and not be judged. My advice would be, if you do get an assessment, which I think would be a helpful thing for you, to at least know from a professional what you have, and a trusted one, trust your gut. If you feel like someone understands you the way that they talk about it, then they know what they're talking about. But sometimes when people talk about OCD, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. So whoever you talk to, when they talk about OCD or they talk about what you're experiencing, if it doesn't sound like what you're actually experiencing, don't be afraid to speak up and clarify what you're really feeling and what it actually feels like. Sometimes it can be hard to explain your experience, but I would write it down or try to do the best job you can to explain your internal experience, your emotions, your physical sensations, what you think about when those happen, what you do. And that way someone can help actually diagnose you more properly, and they just have more information to go off of. But whenever you do get an assessment, or when you go talk to somebody, remember to not make OCD your whole personality, even though it might feel like it is, because you might have had it your whole life. Just remember that you're more than just your OCD, that this is one aspect that has kind of started to take control of your life, but your life is so much bigger than just your OCD worries and just that part of your brain that's obsessive. So keep doing what you like to do. And even if OCD has taken that away, remember what you love to do and keep doing it. As well as when you do the assessment, just instead of focusing on the OCD word, like the word OCD, focus on what your experience is instead of trying to match what the diagnosis is. Really recall what your experience really is, if that makes sense. That way you have a clear mind when you answer questions or you explain what's happening, and you're not fully just focused on the diagnosis of OCD and the word, and everything that entails. That would be my one piece of advice, because I definitely focused so heavily on having OCD, and the reason why was because I was mortified as to what was happening to my brain. I thought I was, I don't even know what I thought, just the worst things in the world. I was the most disgusting, evil person that's ever stepped foot on this planet. It was me. I was the worst. So yeah, I think that'd be my advice. Just remember that you're more than your OCD, and to try to have a blank slate. There's also a lot of really good YouTube videos out there of people talking about OCD. I watched a lot of those, and I had to tone it down because I think it became rather compulsive. But they were really helpful for me at the beginning, just to understand myself more. When I heard somebody else talk about it, it really helped me understand myself and recognize things within myself. And that is very helpful. And it also just makes you feel not alone, and you do have a community of people that are similar. So to sum up, try to get an assessment or something with a professional if your parents have insurance, or I don't know your situation. Keep doing the things that you love, even when you're trying to figure all of this out. Just every once in a while, on the weekends or whenever you have time, just do what you love, and be like, okay, I'm not going to worry about my OCD or having to fix my OCD right now. I'm dedicating this time to only painting or only gaming, or I'm just thinking of things that I like to do. You know what I mean? You got this and you can handle it. You will figure it out. And there are people who are excited to help you, and this is what they do with their life, and they're experts on it. So trust people that, give you a good feeling and they really understand you. Also, it's very impressive being 17 and trying to already be on top of your mental health. I think that's a really cool thing and impressive. So definitely don't give up on that pursuit of, if you do feel like you need help with something, get the help and seek it. And that is important, and you deserve that. I hope that was helpful at all, and I hope I didn't disappoint. But thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Dear Abbey. If you want to support the podcast, you can subscribe, comment on YouTube, as well as leave a rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I would really, really, really appreciate any review and rating. It really does help my podcast grow. Also, if you wanted to share my podcast, I would be very appreciated. And I hope you guys have a great weekend and take yourself out and have fun and go do something crazy. That's it. Love you guys. Bye. 우회전 taking a ride to journey 눈치 보면서 들어가야 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들